Do you want to know what software engineers and potato farmers have in common? I've spent years honing my stakeholder engagement skills across a wide array of businesses. In this video, I'll be sharing practical strategies, expert tips, and real-life examples that will empower you to connect, influence, and collaborate effectively with your stakeholders, which in turn will lay the foundations for thriving FinOps culture. So if you're ready to unlock your full potential and create a culture of success, let's jump right in. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the crawl, walk, run phase of FinOps, but in terms of skills, because FinOps at its core, it's essentially about three things. It's about getting the numbers, reading the numbers, and then communicating those numbers to people to take action. So it's not massively complicated. It's crawl, walk, run. So I'm going to use that analogy to talk about the run phase today, which is the winning hearts and minds, that stakeholder engagement piece. And I'm going to draw on the experience I had when I was a finance business partner for a potato plantation based in rural South Australia. So you're like, okay, Don, you're going to talk about spuds for 15 minutes. What has that got to do with FinOps? So I suppose I've grown up on a farm in rural Ireland, so I was familiar with a farm setting. However, a plantation of this size in South Australia was an entirely different kettle of fish. So I started off by meeting the farm manager and the pack house manager. This place was absolutely massive. It had these huge fields. They were called pivots, so big round fields with a massive irrigation system. And I was responsible for doing the finances. So I kind of got to know the stakeholders to understand what really mattered to them. And surprise, surprise, it was budgets. Budgets was their biggest gripe. They were looking for more money than the central business was giving them, and they had their different reasons for that. So when looking at the budgets as the initial issue, I kind of looked at the business overall to see if there was other levers we could pull to free up the budget to solve their issue. And we noticed that revenue was something that we would be able to drive with some actions, because we looked at the data when we looked at their harvesting, and we could see the small potatoes were when they were harvested, they were more pricey, so we get a better return per ton. We'd have less waste, because if in Australia they're quite particular about their potatoes. If they're too big and they don't fit into parameters, they're just wasted. So we had less waste, and it would mean while the trucks themselves mightn't be as full, the return that we were getting for what we were harvesting was better. So as a result of digging into the data and finding that out, it meant that we changed our planting strategy. So we planted the seeds closer together. We changed our harvesting strategy. We harvested earlier to make sure that we got a higher yield of smaller potatoes, which in turn led to better revenues, which in turn led to better profits, which in turn led to a bigger budget. So while the budget was the upfront issue, the way to resolve it was by digging into the data to find something actionable that the business could do, engaging the stakeholder to drive the action to better the business and better their situation so that they could get what they wanted, but not in a direct linear way. So I've been rabbiting on about spuds for 4 minutes. What has that got to do with FinOps? So FinOps is about people. We've covered in previous episodes about the different personas, your product owners, your engineers, finance, your leadership. And it's each one of those stakeholders have something to gain by an effective FinOps function. Your job as a FinOps practitioner is to engage with them, to build a relationship and find out what their pain point is and how you may be able to address it in a way that is meaningful to them. It's, I suppose, a common one that and a common pushback that FinOps might get is that we're just creating a to-do list for engineers. We run a report and we see that they're running an old machine in an expensive region, and we say, dear engineering team, stop running this machine in this region because it's pricey. And they're like, well, we need it because of reliability or because of data sovereignty, or there is a reason behind it. So what we need to do as a FinOps practitioner is to dig into that level of detail, to ask the obvious question first, like do some research ourselves to see if there is a reason why that exists before going to the engineering team. If we hear from them, we do not want to ask them the same question again, because people will get fairly annoyed with answering the same question and repeat. So build up your base of knowledge of the business and how the applications are structured from having these conversations, so that the next time you speak to them, you've already asked the obvious questions and it can get you to a place of more value and a more meaningful conversation quicker. If you are someone who isn't yet in a FinOps role and you're trying to build that stakeholder engagement muscle so that you can move into FinOps, there are lots and lots of ways to do it. So if you're in finance, you probably have budget reviews with your business unit you're supporting. You will have some engagement with some other team outside of where you're currently working. If you could put a structure on how that engagement happens, like before any meeting, have an agenda. After a meeting, send a follow-up email. What was discussed? What are the actions? Who's taking the actions? And then when you meet again, you're following up on that previous message. So there's a link all the way through. That will help build that muscle of stakeholder engagement, which is a critical part of FinOps. And by doing this now in your current role, you'll be able to demonstrate in an interview or in a future role how you have leveraged your softer skills to drive stakeholder engagement, which is what FinOps is all about. Anyone can read the numbers. Well, anyone with a bit of skill and when you kind of know what you're doing, but the numbers is the easy part. The hard part is building that engagement, getting people to take action from the insights that you're finding as a FinOps practitioner. That's all I had for today. Any questions, if this was useful, if it was not useful, if there's something else around the softer side of skills that you'd like to know, do hit me up in the comments and let me know. Cheers. Thank you. Take care.